Hi heroes! Today's video is going to be a little different from what you are used to on this channel. We are stepping outside the usual Heroes of Might and Magic territory, but still very much within the fantasy strategy world. Before we dive in, a quick note for full transparency. This video is sponsored by Paradox Interactive. Huge thanks to them for giving me the ideal moment to finally explore the Age of Wonders series. I've actually owned Age of Wonders 2 and 3 for ages, but never sat down to play them. So this is a great chance to see what makes Age of Wonders 4 an interesting experience from the perspective of a long-time home fan. Here's what we are going to cover. A quick trip through the series background, a quick overview of races and leaders, empire and world map, and then we will mainly focus on combat, since it's the area I've covered most extensively in my previous videos, and it's also a good place to compare Age of Wonders 4 with Heroes of Might and Magic. And a quick heads up before we continue. The base game of Age of Wonders 4 is free to play on Steam from November 13th to 17th, so if anything here sparks your interest, you can jump in and try it for yourself. Alright, let's get started. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, fantasy strategy games were thriving. Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and 3 were major titles of the era, and right beside them were other universes trying their own spin on the formula. Master of Magic, Disciples, and Aetherlords all offered their own takes, and then there was Age of Wonders. Age of Wonders 1 launched in 1999, followed by Age of Wonders 2, The Wizard's Throne in 2002, then Shadow Magic a year later. Both the original game and Age of Wonders 2 already supported simultaneous turn in multiplayer mode, a feature that was surprisingly ahead of its time. Age of Wonders 3 arrived in 2014, pushing the series into full 3D, and Planetfall in 2019 took the formula into sci-fi. And now Age of Wonders 4 brings it back to pure fantasy, letting you craft your own empire, your race and your ruler, showing how the series took the genre along a different path. In Age of Wonders 4, you can choose a pre-made race and ruler, the equivalent of a hero in the Heroes games, or craft an entirely new civilization from scratch. You begin by choosing your people's physical form, humans, elves, rat folk, and more. Next, you pick a culture, tweaking how they look and what natural strengths they possess. Followed by society traits, which shape how your society plays. You then select your first tome of magic, a themed set of spells, units, and upgrades your empire can research. Your ruler's origin comes next, setting the unique abilities and strengths your leader begins the game with. Since launch, DLCs like Empires and Ashes, Eldritch Realms, and the new Thrones of Blood have added new cultures, tomes, and mechanics. Finally, you customize your ruler's appearance, personality, and name, completing the identity of your new civilization. The empire building side of Age of Wonders 4 is surprisingly deep. You are founding cities, expand them, and manage stability so your realm doesn't start falling apart. Stability is essentially your city's support for your ruler. If it drops too low, production and growth suffer. Keep it high and your empire develops smoothly. Let's quickly revisit the tomes. Here they become part of your long-term planning. You pick tomes of magic, and researching them gradually unlock units, spells, and upgrades that shape your empire's direction. Diplomacy matters too, with alliances, trades, and negotiations influencing your relationship with nearby factions. The world map is filled with neutral creatures called independents, exactly what you would expect in a classic fantasy setting. Units can move on their own without being tied to a hero, something Heroes 4 fans will remember, giving you more flexibility in scouting and map control. Realms, as these maps are called, combine different surface biomes and feature underground areas as well. Armies in Age of Wonders 4 use 6 slots, and your ruler takes up one of them. Units come in tiers 1 through 5, from basic fighters to powerful magical or specialized troops, including dedicated ranged troops. And unlike in the Heroes games, where a stack represents many creatures, here each figure on the battlefield is its own squad. In combat, units gain experience individually as well, learning new traits and growing stronger as they survive battles. Combat in Age of Wonders 4 takes a notably different approach compared to the Heroes games. Before a fight starts, any nearby armies standing near the enemy on the world map get pulled in as reinforcements, so positioning matters. Once a battle begins, everything takes place on a full 3D hex-based map. If you prefer a clearer look, the grid can be hidden or displayed when you need precision. Turn order works differently than in Heroes. There's no initiative bar. Instead, the army that gets attacked acts first, then the attacker, and you choose the order your units will act. There's no fixed sequence, giving you more control over planning your turn and is pretty different to what we know from the Heroes games. Each unit has 3 action points to spend every turn. Moving, attacking, and using abilities all cost action points, which leads to situations like moving your ranged unit, repositioning again, and still getting a shot off. Something you couldn't really do in HoMM, aside from rare cases like Medusa's special ability in Olden Era. Ranged units have actual hit percentages, so attacks can hit fully, partially, or miss. Line of sight and distance matter. If an enemy is too far away, your ranged units can't target them at all. There is also zone of control. When you move next to an enemy, you are in their control zone. Most melee units control the 3 hexes directly in front of them, and stepping into those spaces usually stops your movement immediately. Trying to move away again triggers an attack of opportunity and you get hit. Units in an enemy's control zone can't use ranged or magic attacks, which makes the front line feel more tactical. Flanking is another major mechanic. Hitting an enemy from the side or back gives you extra damage and even stops them from retaliating. You can rotate your units to protect their own flanks. HoMM 7 was the only game that also added flanking mechanics. As units take damage, their overall damage output drops, and their squad actually shrinks as fewer units remain. A nice visual indicator of how much strength they have left. Morale exists here too, but works differently. Getting kills or using certain spells boosts morale, while losing allies lowers it. High morale makes your units more likely to land a stronger hit. Low morale increases the chance to deal reduced damage. In that sense, the mechanic actually feels closer to the luck system in HoMM. And if a unit's morale drops too low, the unit routs, as it is called, meaning it becomes terrified and tries to flee the battlefield. Heroes fight directly as well. They can cast a spell and still use their remaining action points, acting like powerful units rather than commanders on the sidelines. Defense mode lets a unit hold a position more effectively, boosting defense and retaliation, and expanding zone of control to all adjacent hexes. Some units even provide nearby allies with defensive bonuses when entering defense mode. Also interesting, certain hexes on the battlefield have their own terrain effects, influencing movement, defenses, and even status conditions for the units standing on them. As a longtime fan of Heroes of Might and Magic, Age of Wonders 4 feels familiar at its core, but it's doing things in its own way. It's simply a different flavor of the same fantasy strategy magic we love. If you want to check it out yourself, the base game is free to play on Steam until November 17th. Thanks again to Paradox Interactive for supporting this video, and thank you all for watching. This is Anna from Heroes Take Turns. Farewell until we meet again.